Okay, here we go. I think part of the problem is Dylan won't leave the Showtime in. Big mistake. Big mistake.
I'll
Here we
never
go.
leave it in.
That's because you have fucking no vision. 3, 2, 1, and
You suck.
Showtime.
Did you ever see that movie? Did you ever see that movie? Did you ever see that movie?
Welcome to Hey, did you ever see that movie? I'm your host, Des, and as always, I'm joined by my crotchety little co-host, Lynn.
They just fuck you, and they fuck you, and they fuck you. And just when you think it's all over, that's when the real fucking starts.
And joining us again, the podcaster with 1,000 potions, Mickey.
We provide whatever's lacking.
Okay. And last but not least, the podcaster packing heat, Tony 2.0.
You can't smoke here, but I'm with you. It's illegal to smoke in restaurants in California. Fuck California.
Yeah, fuck California. Okay, this week we will be discussing the 1997 thriller, The Game, directed by David Fincher, written by John Brancato and Michael Ferris, starring Michael Douglas, Deborah Cara, Unger, Sean Penn. As always, this podcast will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it, then come back and listen to the podcast. Please take a moment to like and subscribe and share. If you're listening on YouTube, like. If you're listening on Apple, please give us a 5-star review as it really helps the podcast grow. And if you're listening on YouTube, again, please leave a comment. I don't care what it is. Even if you just want to put the little eggplant emoji, go for it. Okay. In fact, let's see how many eggplant emojis we can get this week. Okay. I'll do an eggplant count and I'll let you all know how you did next show. Okay. Okay. So let's do some quick opening thoughts on this one. So, The Game. I have seen this movie a million trillion times. And when Mickey suggested we do it, I was super psyched because I love the movie. But the question is, did it hold up to my review? Let's find out. But I will say one thing after the watch. It did remind me of another movie that I love, Trading Places, where a rich narcissist is stripped of all his money and dignity, and through his trials, finds his humanity and becomes a better person for it. So there you go. There's definitely a parallel with Trading Places. And another little parallel I made was, like you get this guy that's ultra rich, ultra powerful, and it's like with a couple of phone calls, he can't fucking scrounge up $5 to get a fucking get a cup of coffee. So you're gonna have to suspend your disbelief a little bit in this one. Something that I had no problem doing because I was behind the movie 100%. Lynn, had you ever seen the movie before preparing for the podcast?
I think you made me sit through it at some point years and years ago, but I had not seen it since. So it was pretty much a fresh watch for me.
Okay. And Mickey?
Yes, I had seen the movie several times before the podcast.
And Tony, have you ever seen The Game before preparing for the podcast?
Yes, and just as an aside, I actually told Mickey to tell you that I picked the game so that we should see it.
Oh, okay.
yes.
Well,
I hadn't seen it in quite some time, but I was drawn back to it and thought it would be a suitable film for our needs.
Yeah, I also haven't seen it in quite some time. And like I said, I was super pleased to see it pop up. So I was excited to watch it. Owned it back in the 90s. Like I said, wore out a disc of this one. So there you go. Let's do some quick facts on the movie. I have just a couple. Number one, Michael Douglas was going through a divorce at the time of filming and drew from his own feelings to develop the role of Nicholas Van Orton. And number two, Jodie Foster was originally cast to play Michael Douglas's sibling in the film, but it eventually did in fact go to the great Sean Penn, as you all know. The only person I could replace Sean Penn with is Sean Penn. So there you go. Mickey, have you got any facts?
Well, you sort of stole my fact about Jodie Foster. However, I know that she was supposed to play his sister, and then things got ugly, and she ended up suing the production company. And then I also know that Jeff Bridges was supposed to play the role of that Sean Penn ended up getting, but he actually turned it down. So that was the last half of the fact.
Cool. And Tony, you got anything on this one?
No, because you both stole all my good facts. Sadly, I would have loved to see a Jeff Bridges. I don't even care at what point in his career we're talking about. You could do from the dude all the way to like a professional kind of Jeff Bridges where he's clean cut and whatever. I
Sure.
think that guy has so much freaking range. He would have been a great Conrad.
Yeah.
Considering it's a smaller part, I think Sean Penn did a good job of it because, of course, he's a bad boy and he plays Conrad Tilty. He's great about it. But unfortunately, no. Just that this film got bounced around between 1990 and 1997 when it finally got made because it was bought by a couple of studios and it was passed around and moved forward. And it kind of goes to show you how screwy Hollywood can be. Even to the point where apparently they announced at the Cannes Film Festival in '96 that Jodie Foster was going to be in the movie, and then she couldn't, and then it turned into a debacle, and it just shows you that that's the way it works sometimes.
Yeah, this movie was imagined a lot of different ways. Originally, they wanted a younger guy to be Nicholas Van Orton, but then
Mhm.
decided they thought it'd be better with an older guy. Originally, it was going to be an old college buddy and not his little brother. But then they wanted to do the family dynamic, which I thought was great. Um, yeah, so there were a lot of different things. Michael Douglas also really wanted to bring some humor to this movie, and they fought him on it a little bit. You can see a couple of spots he puts a little bit in here and there, but not as much as he wanted. He thought that it needed a lot more comedy relief. I thought it was just enough. So yeah, there you go. All right, let's do a box office on this one. With a budget of $48 million and a box office gross of $104.5 million, this movie was considered a success. And now I will give you an in depth synopsis like every week. After a wealthy San Francisco banker is given an opportunity to participate in a mysterious game, his life is turned upside down as he begins to question if it might really be a concealed conspiracy to destroy him. There you go.
Are you ready to
So
go?
Short,
I'm
sweet,
ready. I'm
and to the
ready.
point.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. The movie begins with a flashback to Nicholas Van Orton's childhood, shown through the lens of home movies, showcasing a wealthy little boy's birthday party, with shots of the father looking a little bit distant. Come modern day, Nicholas is a successful and extremely wealthy investment banker, but his success has come at the cost of his personal life. He's estranged from both his ex-wife and his only brother. He has breakfast standing in the kitchen with his only constant companion, his maid Ilsa, before going into work. He gets a call from Seymour Butts asking him to come to lunch. Knowing that this is his rebellious younger brother Conrad, he arranges to meet him. Conrad comes bringing gifts for Nicholas's 48th birthday, as well as his cringe behavior. He gives Nicholas a voucher to CRS, also known as Consumer Recreation Services. He claims it's a game service that will change your life, and Nicholas thinks it sounds like a cult. I gotta be honest with you, I kind of agree with Nicholas. It sounds a little bit like a cult, especially the way that Conrad sells it, you know?
I liked the mix, the way this movie opens. We get this mix of old home movies, and they're mixed with Nicholas's actual memories. And you can kind of separate the two by like the grain of the movie, the old movie footage. So I was able to kind of figure out where his memory, you know, disconnected from the actual home movies of the birthday party. And I thought it was a clever stylistic way of setting up his family backstory. And the one shot that stood out to me was when the father is standing next to Nicholas in the doorway and he
Mhm.
turns around and walks away. And Fincher like makes a point of fading the character out to black. And this was a powerful shot for me. I thought it like really painted a picture of a fractured man that's like haunted by his past trauma. So I thought he did a really nice job of developing this character of Nicholas Van Orton.
It was also really cool that they showed, that father, and the father looked just like Kirk Douglas. Like, I had to pause and go to
Yeah.
IMDb to see if it was actually Kirk Douglas because, like, he looks a lot like Kirk Douglas, which would have made sense,
Yeah.
but, it wasn't him, but they did a great job casting a dude that looked just like him.
Yeah, well, when you got a guy like Michael Douglas that's that recognizable, you can't just put some schmo and it doesn't look like him as dad. So when Nicholas is driving to work in this scene, you see him driving down this straight street in San Francisco. He's going downhill, and Fincher makes a point of showing him driving down the hill. He's atop his rich, privileged life, and he's going down to mix with the common people, like the valet attendant or the lower level security secretary, excuse me. Neither of whom he speaks to at all, except when he badmouths the girl a little bit. I don't like her, he says to his secretary as she's leaving the office. So he paints the character as a narcissist who's, disconnected from his life, um, including his fractured relationship with his brother Conrad. This feels more like a layered version of like Gordon Gekko, one of my favorite characters from the past. But Gekko was really one dimensional. Like, they didn't really get into who he was as a person and why he was the way he was. So I felt like this was like a more flushed out version of that character. And then finally, we meet Conrad. Um, like we had said, Fincher had originally written it as an old college buddy, but I definitely like it better as the young dysfunctional trust fund brother. And Sean Penn, super charismatic here. He's young. He brings the nice mix of comedy relief. He's energetic. He gets frantic throughout the movie. It's a small part, but like Tony said, he nails it. I thought he was fucking great in this. Nikki, what do you got?
So I really like. I agree with you. I think that the flashbacks and kind of like the home movie style was done really well. And for me, one of the first things that I noticed was the house and how obnoxiously over the top, like gross rich they
Yeah.
portray him. And it's such a cold, even though it's a beautiful house, it's such a cold house.
It's imposing.
Yep.
Yeah, like when he's walking up the stairs and there's that enormous portrait that takes up the whole
I
wall. And
said that to Delin. I go, look at
yeah,
the size of that painting.
it's just like it's so cold.
Yes.
And I think that also says a lot about who he is as a person. The house is cold, the house is obnoxious, he's cold, he's obnoxious, he's clearly lonely, but doesn't know what to do about it. And just when he meets Conrad for lunch, I mean, he's an asshole to the wait staff because he can. He's very condescending to everyone. I think that Sean Penn did such a great job as Conrad. Conrad, like, I would hang out with Conrad out of the, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
out
yeah.
of the
Yeah.
two. Clearly, he's having much more fun at life. And I just think that, Michael Douglas is, even when he talks about his ex, he's like, meh, like everything is like cut and dry. He's very like, I don't know if it's type A. He's just like, it's just, he has no emotion about anything. Even when he's an asshole, he's emotionless.
Yes.
Right.
So I think that was a really good kind of way to preface, like, so you get an idea, an understanding of what he's all about, and they did it in the first 10 minutes, which I thought was great.
Yeah, dude, that fucking frame, man. I was thinking to myself, like, you can't take that down to the frame barn. Like, hey, I got something to frame. Like, how much are you going to charge me for this? To like, you're fucking joking, right? And I was also thinking, like, what's that easel look like? How do you even fucking paint something like that? For the listeners, this thing is literally like 20 feet by 20 feet. Like, this is a huge painting.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's ridiculous.
Tony, do you have anything that size hanging in your house?
I would, because I'm a fan of art. However, my
As am I.
wife precludes me from any of that. Plus, unfortunately, too, we have a wraparound staircase, not a
Is there?
straight staircase, so it's
Yeah.
difficult. Dear, just be quiet and do what you're told. Is that clear? Thank you.
Oh, so Mr. Van Orton, what did you think of these scenes?
Oh, I could freely associate with our friend Nicholas.
Obviously.
He unfortunately is driven. That's his biggest problem. He has no work-life balance. He just has work. Even to the point where, Ilsa is like his confidant, if you
Yep.
will. She grew up with him, she's known him, raised him, etc. And I even look at what he eats. Like, he's got a ham sandwich for dinner, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? She says, oh, your dinner's in the oven. And I'm thinking it's this Chateaubriand, with a nice wine and whatever. And
It's a
he's like,
burger.
yeah, he's drinking a glass of milk with a cheeseburger with lettuce, tomato, and onion. I'm like,
Yep.
this guy he's vanilla. He's milk toast. He's nothing special. Yet he has this, high powered deal where he's cutthroat and a killer, and he winds up, making millions and threatening people and saying, "Look, it's all about the bottom line." And the only thing I comes to mind with me is passive aggressive, because he plays a role to the hilt. But in his private life and his quiet life, he's just kind of a sham. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He's not even a full person, because Mickey said he's not really angry, like, aggressively. He's just kind of, I don't like her, or she's not good, or she doesn't do her job. And it was more to the idea of, she said, I think, a happy birthday as she was leaving.
Yes.
"Oh, sir, happy birthday." He's like, "I don't like her." And it's like, dude, what's wrong with you? But you got to remember too that that's the best part about films. Flawed characters are the most fun to watch, because if they were perfect, what the hell would we want? What would we be attracted to in them?
Right.
So even with Conrad, Conrad admits all his flaws. He's been to rehab. He's a shit show, but he apparently got his game together, and he's gonna do some CRS stuff. And he made it sound like it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So
Well,
he's
the thing with this character, though, and which I love about the beginning of this movie, is a bunch of people say happy birthday to him. There's only a couple of characters that get away with it. Ilsa, one, because everybody doesn't know that it's his 48th birthday, which symbolizes the 48th birthday his father had
right,
as he killed himself on
hmm,
his birthday.
right.
So it's you know, he's butthurt when people are saying happy birthday, but he's not letting people in on the backstory. So
And
Yeah.
the other thing too is that no matter how much you would compare yourself to your father, he even says it at one point. "I'm not. It's not me." You know what I mean? I'm different. He tries
right,
to make a delineation between his dad, who we're not ever brought into the reasons behind what happened, but it's the idea too. The guy was like in his slippers and his bathrobe, and he takes a header off the roof.
right.
I mean, that's not exactly the traditional suicide plan. So.
Yeah, and that roof wouldn't have been high enough for me to feel comfortable jumping off to kill
eh,
myself.
yeah, well.
Like
I think they were kind of alleviating to mental illness, but never actually said it.
See, I felt like it was more that he was one of these guys that internalizes everything, never, says anything to anybody, and then one day just can't take it. He works hard. It's all about
Mhm.
money. It's all about work. He's under pressure. And these are all the exact same things that are going on in Nicholas's life. And at one point, even Conrad says, "You're not my father." And he's like, "Well, I didn't want to be, but I was forced into that role." So
Right.
it almost is like he picked up right where his father left off.
Oh, 100% he did, because Anson Bear, who he goes to fire later in the movie, is like, "I was friends with your father," and he
Yeah,
would be, not embarrassed, but whatever he says, he wouldn't be proud of this.
right.
This is not how he did business.
Yeah,
So he clearly followed directly into his father's footsteps
yeah.
immediately.
I'll tell you which character I wish they had flushed out a little more is Ilsa, because obviously she was also a confidant to the father.
Yeah.
She's like old money. She's been around with these people forever, and probably been a shoulder to lean on for all of these men at some point. So I kind of wish they had maybe written her a little more like Alfred from Batman. And it kind of had that Alfred feel to me. And this almost felt a little like Bruce Banner, like Vicky was saying, very cold, very sterile, old money, So yeah, I kind of was drawing those comparisons a little bit. So
Yeah, and he really only see him in two rooms. He comes in not through the front door, but through the side door into the
yep,
Yeah.
kitchen, and then he goes upstairs into like his rec room or study or whatever you call it. And that's a warm room, a lot of wood, and it's a fireplace, and he watches TV. But he's sitting there, and he basically that's like his only routine. He comes
Yeah.
home, and this guy, even in the shots, he doesn't even loosen his tie. You know what I mean? He's sitting on the couch, and
yep.
he's just like fully dressed, and the guy doesn't pull his shoes off or relax at all. He's just a stiff motherfucker.
I don't think that it's a coincidence that he goes in through the kitchen when he comes there. He doesn't go in, he goes in through the kitchen, and that's where Ilsa is usually. And to me,
Right.
that doesn't seem like a coincidence.
And what did the father do when he took the header off the house? He didn't go into the backyard. He
Did it off the front
belly
yard.
right. He belly flops into the front yard, into the courtyard where they would all find him.
Yep.
So it's
Right.
almost like a statement in and above
Still a
itself.
dick.
I love his little study too. his wood bound study. As Fletch would say, "Well, you remodeled the garage. It must have cost you hundreds."
Returning home after lunch, Nicholas is haunted by the memory of his father's suicide. On his own 48th birthday, his father jumped from the roof of their home, which Nicholas witnessed. Nicholas has doubts about the gift and delays calling CRS. Later at the club, he overhears two men speaking about CRS and their good experiences with them. He happens upon CRS's business offices while attending a meeting and decides to speak to them and see what it's all about. While there, he was told that he will need to fill out some paperwork and take a physical. The man he's speaking to likens CRS to a choose-your-own-adventure mystery novel, and for some reason, this seems to appeal to Nicholas, who endures answering hundreds of seeming nonsensical questions and then a barrage of ridiculous tests that take the remainder of his day. Later, he is informed that his application has been rejected. So, for me, this is the part that I really, really, really had to suspend my disbelief, because there's no way a man like this is dealing with 4 or 5 hours of these ridiculous tests. Like, he would have gotten like one page into that questionnaire and been like, okay, I'm fucking out. But also, during the flashing word picture portion of the test, there's a callback to Blade Runner, because you can hear a woman's voice saying reaction time is a factor. And it was like, oh my God, that's Blade Runner. So to me, that gave me a moment of like, it just excited me for a second.
So, Dylan, I disagree with you about the CRS thing. Normally, I would think a guy like this wouldn't take the time, but what happens here is he goes into this place and, they're very disorganized, and he gets this guy who's going to do his evaluation. The guy is bumbling, he's eating his Chinese food, and Nicholas feels like he's above these guys, and he feels like he's the cat and they're the mice, and he's going to play their game and beat it. And that's why he's taking the time here, I think. In this scene where Nicholas is eating his birthday burger and watching the news, we see real life news anchor Daniel Shore playing himself. And at the time of shooting, at this time in the 90s, people were starting to come down on news reporters for selling out and doing cameos in movies. And right before he went for this shoot, a article came out that literally named him for being one of these peoples that are selling out and one of the offenders. So he showed up already apprehensive, and he was told he was just going to have to do a short reading. There was going to be like a newscast. And he was told he actually had a much bigger interaction with Michael Douglas than expected. And he started literally freaking out. Fincher had to calm him down and walk him through the whole read. And eventually they got through it, but it was like almost a problem. And as for the scene, I love the conversation with his ex-wife. Okay. She's a great character. She obviously still cares about him. And before she says goodbye, she tries to have this tender moment with him, but he emotionally shuts down and is just like, oh, all right, bye-bye. And then he drifts into this memory of his father's suicide. And the ending of this memory is the door shutting again. And his father's on the other side with the ambulance people, and it fades to black again. And Fincher is making a point of doing this over and over every time we have one of these memories of the father. And this is suppressed trauma. That's what he's saying, that he is blocking this stuff out, and it comes up in little bits and pieces, and he pushes it away. And I think Fincher did a great job of helping us understand why Nicholas is the way he is. And without these scenes, he would just feel like a rich asshole like Gordon Gekko. But honestly, the way Fincher is painting him, I just feel bad for him. And it adds those layers to this character that make this movie fun to watch and make this character arc fun to watch. We get to the club, and this is where the game begins. These guys that he overhears talking, these are obviously working for CRS, and this is where these red herrings and breadcrumbs start to drop everywhere, right? And this is where we can't believe anything we're seeing or being told in this movie, and that's the charm of this movie, because you know what you're watching is all bullshit, right? The evaluation at CRS, sure, it's a little stupid. These questions, like Dylan said, they're questions this guy probably wouldn't be up for answering. He probably wouldn't be up for all this unorganized bullshit. He probably would have said, I'm out of here. But I think it's important because, one, they're building this super in-depth profile, which is going to help them predict what he will do in different stressful situations. And they're trying to really hammer to us, the viewers, that they have a good idea of what he's going to do when they put him in these stressful situations. And that helps me as the viewer suspend my disbelief when I need to enjoy this movie. And you're only going to suspend your disbelief if you want to like the movie. If you're already not having fun, you're like, fuck this. None of this makes sense. It's bullshit.
I feel like when he's filling out I even have it in my notes, like the obnoxious questionnaire.
Yeah. When he asks them, do you feel guilty when you masturbate?
Yeah.
Of
But like,
course.
so I don't know.
Don't lie,
I feel
Des.
like,
You don't feel
He
guilty.
does not feel guilty when he
You're a
masturbates.
taker. You and the Oculus. You're gone for hours.
I'm proud of my masturbating
Damn
addiction.
straight.
I feel like he would have gotten bored with it only because men like him are used to having people to do things like that for him. Because that, to me, I feel like that kind of stuff is almost beneath him. And like, why am I spending my whole fucking day here filling this shit out when I could have, my secretary do, you know what I mean? Like stuff. I understand why he has to do it, but I feel like, you could see him a couple times getting frustrated, and I think because he's used to having, the underlings do that kind of stuff for him.
Agreed.
When he's talking to the guy and he's doing like the flashcards and all that stuff, obviously no one can do that for him, but I mean, I know, having worked for a lot of executives, that sometimes they'll get like what they call an executive health benefit. So basically, Joe Schmo gets the regular insurance, but because you're the big kahuna, you get to go and spend the day at the doctor and get a complete health profile and get an echo done and a scan done of all your whatever, and you can tell if your things are blocked to your heart, and like
Well,
basically you get the whole shebang.
Yeah, if you really want to waste a whole day, any doctor's office is a perfect place to fucking lose time. So you're good
Right.
there.
But I just feel like, I feel like he would have had someone else doing the paperwork part of it.
Yeah, you guys got to remember too, though, he made a promise to Conrad, and Conrad
right.
made him like specifically promise he would do this. And CRS is not going to let him go through with this event if he doesn't answer the questionnaires personally.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say the funny thing was to me was when they're doing the flashcard thing and you see the car breaking through and shooting out, and he says oops as his response to it, and that it's basically a foreshadowing of something that's going to happen to him, which I saw that and I was like, hey, that was pretty clever.
Yep.
Well, I've actually taken the MMPI several times, which is the long, boring test with about 320 questions, where they ask you kind of the same question about 9 different ways, basically to see if you're lying or not. And it's a proven test. It's been around since the late 60s. It's constantly monitored and changed, but it's, I think it's called the Minnesota Moline Personal Index, or Personality Index, excuse me.
Tony,
And
I have a question for you
ahead.
quickly. As a police officer, as an ex-police officer, now from taking that test, did they train you how to ask a suspect the same question a few different ways without them realizing you're doing it to see if they are lying?
No, only because the academy doesn't give you enough time for that. A lot of times, if you are promoted to the position of detective, you will do a class like that, and it's kind of more of an interview. I wouldn't call it an interrogation class, but it's more to the idea of how to interview someone. My thing too is that rather than ask people questions, just have them tell you a story, right? Because you'll look for the inconsistencies in their story, and they'll dime themselves out. People inherently are shitty liars.
Okay.
Even the best criminal is going to tell you a story that's going to be very specific about certain things and then very vague about other things. Just pick apart the vague shit and then ask him to give you details or back up whatever he said. And then he's going to have to tell you 11 lies in a row, and that's going to eventually trip them up.
Okay.
As the bad joke goes in police work, we don't catch the smart ones. Sometimes we actually do catch the smart ones because they just fuck up a story, or they haven't built a cover, or they leave something behind, or they can't, they misremember, which is a term in the 2020s. It's just called a lie. It's not called misremembering. You know what I mean? That's called fucking lying. You can't remember the fucking lie you told me, 2 hours ago. Now, I misremembered that. No, you didn't, you fucking dumbass. But
Okay.
it is what it is. And it's also the idea of 9 times out of 10, it's you sure you want to go with that? And I've literally played that game. Remember how they used to ask you, is that your final answer?
Yeah.
You know, that was a great show because we could just adapt it and go, you sure you want me to go with that? Because I'll lift the phone up and I'll make a phone call to that person. And if they tell me you weren't with them, boy, are you going to have some fucking explaining to do.
Right.
So, you know, we're not dealing with rocket scientists. But
Right. Okay.
the MMPI is essentially looking for a way to trick your brain. That's kind of not what they call it. That's my version of it. But it's asking you a similar question in a different way just to make sure that you're being sincere about what you're saying. Because in your true kind of heart of hearts or your mentality and your driving kind of ethos, you have to come out with an answer that makes sense, 7 out of the 8 times they ask it. You know what I mean? And it may trip you up once only because it's asked in such a bizarre way. One of the things is, are you scared of earthquakes? If you say fucking no, you better have a good answer for why, if you ask me, because you should be shit scared of earthquakes because there's no control there. There's nothing you can do to stop it, whatever. It's a psychological trick to see if you're basically a sociopath.
Right.
Because, a sociopath really probably isn't scared of anything because they believe they're in charge of all of it. So,
fun fact, I was
Yeah.
living in San Francisco in 1988, and I experienced the great earthquake of 1988.
I'm
So there you
fucking
go.
sorry to hear that, bro. That must
Yes.
have been hellacious.
No, it was awesome. It was
Really?
cool.
You got the day off from work or something?
It was so
Jesus.
awesome. He got right on a bus and went home.
Yeah, I said, fuck this. I'm gone.
It was a plane, and I went to New York,
Okay.
which was far scarier than San
well,
Francisco earthquake.
Which was a very scary time in the 1980s. Just walking through Times Square could get you fucking killed. But
Yeah.
it's also the idea that there are 0 earthquakes in New York. So there you go.
Yes, yes, correct. I was actually saying to Dylan, I think Massachusetts is actually a pretty good place to live now if you think about it. There's no tornadoes, there's no earthquakes, there's no hurricanes. It doesn't
The
even
taxes
snow here.
kill you. That's the problem.
Yeah, the taxes will
will
kill you, and the townies are fucking a little rough around the edges. But
At least you don't live in Lynn. You're okay.
Yeah,
shit.
it's all part of the charm of Massachusetts, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, we'll kick your fucking ass. All right.
That's it.
Massholes forever.
That's it.
Shit. Oh my god.
But I think that's another thing is that why Nicholas puts up with the goofiness and I love that character actor that plays the doctor.
Oh, me too. Dr. Larry from Meet the Parents. Now cut
Yeah.
that out.
That's it. But it's the idea that he made a promise to his brother, who
Yes.
I know loves, but does not get to see because they are somewhat estranged, and it's also the idea that nothing personal, but this is a sad, desperate little man, and he's been given a lifeline, and he wants to see where the string goes. So
I
he's
agree.
going to play it out as exasperated as he gets because nothing personal, but he doesn't have shit else going on in his life. He's a fucking, he's a pretty boring cat. I mean, work, and more work makes Jack a dull boy. If you listen to The Shining, that's the story.
Tony, I agree with what you just said. I think it was a fucking awesome observation because at this point in the movie, they haven't shown us that he's really on the edge and close to coming unhinged. But we are going to get a shot of him in the airport, like flipping out in public, right? Like this rich, really buttoned down guy fucking loses it, which reminded me of his character in Falling Down.
Yes.
Right? He loses it in this fucking airport. And it shows you that he is close to coming unglued. And I think what you just said really makes sense. I think he knows this. He's not confiding in anybody, just like his father. And I think he fears that he may be close to suicide and wants this help if there's something that might help him. So I love that. Great
It's that
observation.
nagging little voice in the back of his head that's like, hey, you're going to lose your marbles and wind up just like Dad.
Great observation. It's unbelievable Dylan couldn't see that. Jeez.
Ladies and gentlemen, there will be film at 11 for The Domestic over at the
Yeah.
Des and Dylan house later
What a
on.
phony movie reviewer. Just has no vision. All right, Magoo, keep it going. Don't worry,
I will
me and-
turn this whole podcast around.
We
Don't
are
worry.
not going
Me-
anywhere.
Me and Tony will teach you. Don't worry. You just stick
You
around.
won't teach me
Padma.
shit. Shut up.
Padme, whatever.
What?
Padme?
What are you
Panama?
talking about?
That's Star
From
Wars.
Star Wars.
Padawan, you fucking moron.
She maxes
Hey.
out her mic with that.
It goes along with the Des mispronunciation of everything that's important. Come on.
Oh my
It's
God.
a theme throughout this entire podcast, and I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
P.S. You just maxed out yours, and then you went like this and continued to talk. So
Okay.
I don't want to hear shit about shit.
Yeah. Can you
Ooh, that
see
was a
that?
good Des impression.
Okay. Let's go. All right. Do your job. Talk.
Do your job, Deirdre. Do your job. You're a good girl.
Eat my balls. All
Okay.
right. The rejection is actually a ruse and the game has already begun. Nicholas returns home to find a clown doll laying face down in the exact same position his father had been laying on the gravel driveway. Inside the clown's mouth is a key emblazoned with CRS. While attempting to figure out what the deal is with the clown, Nicholas's regular financial TV show host speaks directly to him from the TV. He discovers there's a camera in the clown's eye and disables it, but the TV host continues to explain to him that he is now in the game and he will need the key and should keep his eye out for the chance to use it. The next day, he flies to fire the head of a children's book publisher whose stocks are not performing as promised. But when it comes time to have him sign the paperwork, he is unable to open his briefcase, and not even the CRS key works. He returns home and tries to get Conrad to meet him for dinner when a waitress named Christine spills a tray on him. She calls him an asshole and promptly gets fired, but Nicholas gets a note telling him to not let her get away. He gives chase, finding her in the alley. She tells him to fuck off and leaves, but then they witness a man collapse in the street. She gives him CPR while Nicholas flags down a cop. They are forced to ride in the ambulance with the man, but when they reach the underground entrance of the ER, the lights go out and everyone scatters. Christine leaves and Nicholas goes with her. They get into an elevator, and with his CRS key, it starts. The elevator breaks down and they're forced to climb up the elevator shaft without Nicholas's briefcase. They set off an alarm and make a run for it, complete with being chased by a dog and landing in a trash dumpster. They make it to Nicholas's office where they clean up and take taxis home. So, this is a lot. I know I covered a lot of ground here, but we meet Christine, who's going to become an integral part. I think it's interesting that I kind of think they hope that he is going to follow Christine, feeling bad that she got fired, and he doesn't. So this guy comes up with a note saying, don't let her get away. And to me, that's interesting because it's, like you said, they had to be ready for these different things. So, you know, she's like, oh, they gave me money to spill the drinks on you later. She says that. But yeah, it's interesting to me because they kind of knew that either he was going to give chase because he felt bad, or he was going to continue to be himself and not feel bad at all, which, you know, kind of fit with the character.
Yeah. So Finchner here is doing his best to show us that at this point in Nicholas Van Orton's character arc, he still doesn't care about anybody but himself. He has no empathy. He has no conscience, nothing. So he doesn't feel compelled to run after her and say, hey, I'm really sorry I got you fired. Or to say to the owner, don't fire her. It's, you know, no, he's fine with it. Fuck her. See you later. In the alleyway, he's expected to help that bum. He doesn't. He's like, I don't give, I'm not touching him. Fuck him. So she gives him the mouth to mouth. So this is where the movie begins for me. This is where it's like it takes off. From this point on, literally nothing is what it seems. We get these great scenes with the clown and the TV talking directly to him. This is where CRS, the game, feels much bigger and more formidable of an opponent than it did when he was dealing with this bumbling Chinese food eating dipshit that evaluated him at CRS, right? And I love this raising of the stakes. And it really felt like it was deliberate. Like they wanted him to feel like he had the upper hand when he agreed to do the game. He's like, these people are beneath me. They're stupid. They're bumbling. They're unorganized. And now suddenly they've got his TV talking to him. It's like, okay. We get this subplot with Anson Bear. I love this because now we have another possible antagonist besides CRS, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a much needed misdirection, which is going to give us a payoff at the end, right? Because they're trying to sell it to us. This is fucking Anson Bear. He's going to fucking blackmail him. He's setting him up. So now we're not sure. Is he playing the game? Isn't he playing the game? Is this over a giant, you know, business deal gone bad? I like it. We also see Nicholas, like I said earlier, completely lose it in public at the airport. It's showing us he's already unstable before even being nudged by CRS. He's on the edge. Like Delyn said, next we meet Christine, the hostess. I love this character, and this is why. She helps me suspend my disbelief as she is obviously sent there to guide him through the game. She is leading him through the game the way they want it to unfold. For instance, when they're stuck in the elevator, she forces him to climb up out of the elevator first, even though he wants her to go first. And she says, I'm not wearing any underwear. And I paused it, not for the movie podcast, just because I wanted to see if she was wearing any underwear. It's got a little afternoon fucking bippity boo. She sadly was wearing underwear. So that put a kibosh on that. But it
Wow.
plays great for me because she is leading him when they go into the CRS building and trip the alarm. He says, great, we're going to sit here. We're going to wait for the police. We'll explain it. She's like, fuck you. We're not doing that. Let's go. And he follows her. So he's following her around like a fucking blind dog. Mickey, did you pause it and try to see if she was wearing underwear, or is it just me?
I didn't. I didn't.
Shockingly.
Okay.
My biggest question, why the fuck would you pick up a creepy ass clown like that and bring it into your house? Why? I would have thrown it in the fucking trash can.
Mm-hmm.
I think that falls under Dez's version of you have to suspend reality. I have a
little
real problem with clowns. I'm totally with you. That motherfucker would find his way to the dumpster. End
Yeah.
of story. Goodbye. I think the difference too is like we said before, Nicholas is not well. I mean, he has this outer veneer that he is all that in a bag of chips. He's got a $5,000 suit and a $400 tie and a pair of $1,000 Gucci loafers. But this guy is a shit show underneath. He's bored stiff.
Yes.
He has no life. This is a diversion. And the best part too, he talks to the guys he doesn't realize they're with CRS. He thinks they're just participants in this game thing. And they give him the most nondescript fucking answers. He says,
Right.
with great detail, explain what this is. And they don't. They just leave him high and dry. And he goes, okay. Which is
but they give him just enough to
they just
tease
the joke
him.
goes, just the tip. You know what I
Just
mean?
the tip.
Just the tip.
Just the tip.
Yeah. So he plays a little game in just the tip, and he gets left. So and the worst part is this poor bastard. He's not got a lot going on. Don't ask me why, because let's be real. He obviously has impeccable taste. He's got more money than God. Why he's a shut-in is anyone's guess. But I think it's kind of explicit to the plot here, and it's the idea that how do we say it too? I love the fact that the newscaster kind of plays a little game with him and says, "Cold, colder, getting warmer," because they
Yes.
want him to know, right? You have to get the fish into the boat so you can take them to shore and eat them for dinner. So they lure this fucker in because they know they got him in the palm of their hand. They have a psychological profile, which is basically what they built on this guy. The problem is there are variables that they need to flesh out in certain parts of this game. Like when the old guy is having a cardiac, most people would do exactly what Nick Van Orton did. They would
Yes.
fucking freeze up. They wouldn't remember how to do CPR if they knew. And if they did know, they'd go, I don't know if I want to touch him or do that, or am I going to get sued, or the 10,000 things that go through your mind when you're in that situation. People who do heroic shit don't think about it. They just do it because it's ingrained in them.
Yeah.
People who sit there and kind of spin on it don't do anything because they're the deer in the headlights and they don't act, right? She is a doer. He is attracted to that somewhat because she knows the play, right? She knows the script. She's the double agent in the whole thing because she plays both sides against the middle. So, and to him, she's very, I don't know, she's a diversion.
Exciting. A little exciting.
Well, and
the
deal
risky.
too. Yeah, she kind of lives life on her own terms, and he's doing anything but that.
Yep.
He's still paying homage to the memory of a guy who's been dead for 40 years because it's the Van Orton building, and I'm sure the business was built by his dad, and he's taking it over, and it's all him. I mean, the guy has no kids, he has no wife, he has no life. He's he's an island. So
Yeah.
this is something that's come his way, and he's going to play it out.
Yeah. I mean, they considered making this a love interest between Christine and Nicholas, and they decided not to go that route. We get a little hint of it at the end, like where they actually bring it out in the open, where he says, "Where did that waitress go?" I think she's out by the cab, and he goes out, and maybe we should hook up sometime. But throughout the movie, I don't think they needed to introduce it that way because I'm feeling sexual tension between these two. Like I felt a little of it. Didn't you guys feel like it was
Sure.
kind of there unspoken?
Anytime you put somebody in a very high risk situation, that's like a hop, skip, and a jump away from, some type of a sexual relationship. Because
Sure.
if you've been through something hairy with somebody, you have a bond with them that is not ever broken,
Yeah, it's called marriage.
Well, there's that. Hopefully your marriage isn't going that way. But hey, if it is, kids, yeah, they got that going for you.
No, our
I
marriage
mean,
is
after
great.
this podcast.
Yeah,
No,
well,
no. Ever since I moved up into my apartment, things have just been amazing.
Delin, you don't have an axe or anything really sharp like that, do you?
Nah.
No,
Okay.
bullshit. She's got a fucking samurai sword and a fucking machete under her bed. Okay?
That's
a
for the
fact.
zombies. That's for the zombies. Don't
Yeah,
worry about
it actually is called the Zombie Killer. It's green and it's called the Zombie
Nice,
Killer.
I have
nice.
a zombie
See?
killer too.
Yeah, Mickey
See?
has a little different version. It's kind of a two-headed axe thingy bob, but I
just
like
locked my
mine made by
doorknob.
my two friends, Mr. Smith and Mr. Wesson, but that's totally
Oh,
different.
nice. I was actually saying to Delin today, Tony, how good I think you are at breaking down movies. You are definitely my foil. The two of us fucking tear these things fucking apart like Siskel and fucking Ebert back in the day. Like borderline professional movie reviewers at this point.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we got to put on the airs and make it
That's it.
sound good for the viewers
That's
and
it.
listeners and
That's
stuff.
right.
What the hell?
Yep. Delin and Mickey are the lipstick of this pig. They make it look good, and we bring the fucking knowledge.
That's why we carry them around on our arms so that they can keep us, in good stead. What the hell?
Tony, did your back hurt like mine? Because I've been carrying my
Yeah,
wife for
I've been carrying
150 episodes.
for a while.
Okay. All right,
Wow.
Delin.
Wow. Yeah, he's really looking to light it up tonight. He really
Well,
is.
when you're on a roll, you can't stop now. You got to keep rolling, baby.
I know what the people come here for. Dysfunctional date night. They don't want to hear me and Tony wax poetic about the game. Go, do your
You guys
job,
are
woman.
just fucking stroking each other off, for Christ's sake. I mean,
Jealous.
Good.
Oh,
Keep the movie
God.
rolling. Keep the
All
game
right.
going.
The next morning, Nicholas learns that his Amex was left at a hotel, and when he calls the concierge, acts like he knows him. He goes to the hotel and finds a suite filled with after-party debris. There's a porn playing on the TV and pictures that make it appear like he and possibly Christine were there. He gathers the picture, believing this is some kind of setup by the man he tried to fire, and leaves. Returning home, he finds the house has been broken into and someone has painted graffiti on the walls. It mocks him and suggests he follow his father's footsteps into suicide. He calls the police, but Conrad shows up in a panic. They drive away from the house, Conrad freaking out about CRS's fucking him over, and when they get a flat tire, Conrad finds a bunch of CRS keys in Nicholas's car and assumes he's working with them. They fight and Conrad runs off. Nicholas, unable to change a tire, leaves his car and hails a taxi. It's run by CRS though, and the driver ditches before letting the taxi fly off into the bay. Nicholas is only able to get out by using a handle he found in his briefcase to crank the window down. Pissed, he brings the cops into it now, and they find CRS offices completely vacant, and they say the floor wasn't even rented out to anyone. The cops are looking into things, but they don't have a lot to work with. So here, when he comes into the house and he puts his hand on the live wire, that would have been a lot worse than a little shock, first of all. So I had a hard time with that one. But then also, they put him in San Francisco with a flat tire, and he thinks he's going to change his flat tire on a 45-degree incline.
Dangerous. Dangerous.
Seems like this is a bad idea, Mean Gene. Just call AAA. Just call AAA.
So I would like to give you my experience with 220 house electricity. When I was about 13, I had a boombox, if you'll remember those. They were the radios all of us kids had back
Still
in the
got
day.
one, baby. Still
Yes.
got one.
So I had one, and the cord, it would plug into the side of it. It usually had this little sharp triangle design that if you didn't have the right one, it wouldn't fit in. So I was taking a kitchen knife and I was cutting the plastic down on the plug, trying to get it to fit in. And I would cut it back a little bit, and I would plug it in, and I would try and plug it into the thing, and it wouldn't fit. So I would unplug it from the wall, and I got it so it was pretty close. And I was using my teeth, and I was chewing a little bits off and just trying to get it the rest of the way. And I had forgotten to unplug it from the wall, and I stuck it into my mouth.
Yeah.
Plugged into the wall, and it felt like I got punched in the face,
Mhm.
but I didn't die. So, but yeah, interesting.
This
So-
explains a lot.
Well, let me tell you this, Des. Yeah, that's called electroshock therapy. If you remember the good old
Well, it
days.
didn't work.
Number one. Number two, let's hope that your house wasn't 220. It was just good old 110. because
It was an
especially in
apartment.
older homes in the Northeast, we like 110 better because it goes twice as far for half as much money.
You know,
But
I was living in an apartment complex at the time, so
oh, okay.
I'm sure it was updated to 220. It felt like
Well, there
220.
you go.
Felt
Yeah,
like
that's
220.
gonna. You're lucky it didn't. You because you maybe it was in your mouth. It was automatically ejected.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have seen some bad electrical
Really.
burns.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah, true story. No, true
working
story.
in construction. We had a guy who got shocked off some baker staging because he was in an area where the electricians told him that these wires were all dead. They weren't live wires, and it was attracted to the drill. We were installing an architectural ceiling, and he got shocked right off the baker stage.
Wow.
Thankfully, it was only about 8-9 foot down, but he was like out cold, and he had a hell of a burn on his hand
Wow.
where he was touching the drill
I'm surprised
because
I
he was the
wasn't
ground.
injured. I'm surprised I wasn't
Oh
injured
yeah, I
more.
think he was a little special to begin with, and this just made it worse. But
No,
it
I'm
is
saying
what
I'm
it is.
surprised I wasn't injured more sticking the cord directly into my mouth as a small dumb child.
Yeah, well, we
Yeah.
all do dumb things.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was a tin knocker, I cut through many a braided electrical wire with my Sawzall. So there you go. Pissing off the electricians. Okay. So this is where we get the spooky, dangerous part of the game, right? And I love it. We get this fantastic scene in the hotel, which is a total misdirection. Conrad freaking out in the car, the keys. In this scene where he's in the car with Conrad, Fincher didn't waste this scene. He doesn't waste a lot of scenes. I really like the way he tells this story because it's all about character development. It's all about fucking past. It's all about fucking character arc. And this is where Conrad yells at him, "You're not my father." And he says, "I was forced to take that role." And this sets up the resentment um, both men have for each other. It sets up the resentment that both men have for their father. And it is a deeper movie than just what's on the surface. And that's what I like about this, and kind of what like a lot of these roles that Michael Douglas was playing up to this part. Because DeLynn said he was starting to get a little typecast at this point in his career. And this is like what I said, like Gordon Gekko didn't get. So I felt like this was a deeper role for Michael Douglas. I think it opened up better roles for him going forward. And I'm sure DeLynn can speak on that because I just, stole that from her. She said that over cinnamon buns and coffee this morning. And finally, this scene with the
Wait
taxi.
a minute. You mean DeLynn carries water for you? Come on, baby.
I plagiarized from her.
Yeah, you know you're a thief. You steal all her good lines.
Yeah. Basically, the thing that I had read was talking about how he was very typecast in the asshole role. Because Gordon Gekko was a huge character. It was a huge movie.
Yep.
And I think he looked at this role and said, I'm opening the door with my asshole character, but then it's going to move me past that. And it really did do that. Because if you look at the roles that he got after this, he definitely got some softer, more interesting roles. It wasn't always the asshole. And yeah, so it actually worked in his favor in the long run.
Yeah,
Right.
but he was at a vulnerable point in his life, and I think that also helped him develop his character into a more of a real person. So finally, the scene of him in the taxi plunging into the San Francisco Bay, awesome, because this is where we see him use the CRS key to open the briefcase to find the handle, right? Um, there's so many red herrings in this movie, so you see these things, you're like, okay, we're going to get a scene that is going to be directly related to this handle. And this is something that we were getting like in Rocky Horror last week. It starts training me in this movie to say, okay, when I see something like this, pay attention to it. Where is it going to pay off and come back in the movie? And I love that. And that really kept a movie that, quite honestly, the pacing's a little off in this movie. It's a little slow, and it's the only thing that saved it from not being brutally slow.
I have to laugh because all I could think of with the handle was a Resident Evil game, like the original Resident Evil games. You just find a random handle laying on the floor. You're like, I'll just keep this. And then later on,
Good
you're like, I
idea.
need this to survive. And I love that. I love Tommy Flanagan, the cab driver. He was in Braveheart. I think he was in Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
I love him.
I love the crazy makeup they gave him too, with the scars on his face. Did you
That's
notice?
not makeup.
It's not makeup.
Oh
not
shit!
makeup.
Oops! Yikes! Does anybody know what
That's
happened?
really him.
Did
Yeah,
he stick
you know
a
what he
cord
did?
in
He
his
was
mouth?
chewing on a fucking cord one
Okay.
day, and it was plugged into the wall. So see how fortunate you are?
Nicely played,
Um,
sir.
but that scene was very intense in the cab with the cab going into the water like that. That's like a weird kind of irrational fear of mine.
That's why Mickey doesn't take Uber anywhere.
Right.
That's
Right.
why I do Uber.
Lie.
But yeah, I just think, you're right in how, he starts off the movie as a dick and then he ends up actually being kind of a human. I don't know. I wish they had explored. I wish they had gone in a little further in depth on the relationship between him and Conrad.
Yes.
I mean, clearly they're brothers. They love each other. They're not necessarily super close, but they're close. I mean, they give each other, whatever for their birthdays. But I just wish they had gone a little more into their relationship growing up, like pre and post father dying.
Yeah, I wish there was more Conrad, period. I mean, it's
Yes.
Sean fucking Penn, and he's so charming in this, and we get none of him.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We all know he's your
So
man
yeah.
crush, Des. I'm sorry.
I love him.
But no, I agree with you, and that just I agree with you on the pacing too. It could be a little slow, but then there were scenes like that where you're like, oh shit, okay, now what's happening?
Yep.
So yeah,
I think the pacing is kind of the roller coaster effect. You have to slowly build up where the car is climbing up the hill, and then wow, you're plunged down into this. Not only that, but then you do wonder. They're constantly kind of reinforcing the idea that this is a scam, and then something happens to go, absolutely not. That is totally the way it is. So they've got you, even the character, obviously, Nick Van Orton is second guessing himself, and his version is, am I going crazy? The key is this: is that some of the things you're doing are leading to the next event, right? Like, he's got this $80,000 car that has a flat. Instead of either changing it or dealing with his brother, he just abandons it and gets in a cab. And it's like, dude, this is San Francisco. And even in the late 90s, that car won't make it to morning. It'll be
Oh,
gone
yeah.
when you come back there. Forget about it. It's game over.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of wonder, but then again, too, we have to think about who we're dealing with. This guy's never faced this type of adversity in his life. You know what I mean? He's a smart man. He has every privilege. He runs a multi-million-dollar business or whatever the investment banker thing is. And it's the kind of thing where, that's why they go deeply into what his responses are, I think, because they plan for both the inaction and the action. You know what I mean? They plan for him to do the right thing and then not do the right thing. And then
Yep.
depending on where that goes, that's the flow chart of where this game winds up. And that's what makes it so interesting to watch, is that it needs a little of that slow period to build into crescendo of something that's hair raising or wild or whatever it might be. And it's even to the point where he realizes at certain points, because now his wits are at 100%, that he's being tailed by that private investigator.
I
So
love
he
that scene.
confronts the guy. Yeah, and it's a character you've seen in about 50 other movies. That's what I love about the cast too. They picked some of these people just keep getting used up in character roles that are awesome. And he snatches this pistol out of a shoulder holster, like he was meant to do it. And he goes, I bet they use real bullets in the game too. And he blows the tire on the car, and the guy's like seriously shit scared, because that,
Yep.
of course, was not scripted. And this game is supposed to have the ability to do all of this, and account for it. So it's pretty awesome to see Nicholas kind of grow as a character in the movie, because he used to be kind of mealy mouthed and whatever, like you said. He was able to be molded by her. She told a lie, and he went with the modesty theory, and then he winds up taking the lead. He doesn't want to go that way. She gets him to do it, right?
Yep.
He wants to call the police. She says, fuck this, we're going over here. And he's kind of like the little lost bunny in the woods, and he just follows her wherever. Well, now he's calling shots, right? He's taking charge of his life. He's going to start fighting back, if you will, because he doesn't really know what he's facing. But he's not going to lie down and take this shit, because that's just he's reached a point in his life where he's going to continue to do the best he can to figure out what the fuck's going on. And he is a smart guy. You know what I mean? He puts it together. He takes the little clues, like the Chinese restaurant, he uses that at that one point to kind of try to backtrace where he can find this guy, and of course he gets lucky because it's expeditious in the plot. But it's the idea that the guy's sharp. He's obviously not a dullard. It's just more to the idea of until you're put in that situation, you don't know quite where the hell you are and what's going on. You've got to use your wits to get yourself squared away.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said 100%.
With no one else to turn to, Nicholas finds Christine's home. He soon discovers that she's a CRS employee and that her apartment is just a staged set. Christine tells Nicholas that they're being watched. Nicholas attacks a camera and armed CRS troops begin to swarm the house and fire upon them. Nicholas and Christine are forced to flee. Nicholas realizes that CRS has drained his financial accounts and he's now broke. Christine tells him that some of his closest associates are part of the game. Just as he begins to trust Christine, he realizes that she's drugged his cocoa, and he falls unconscious. Nicholas wakes up to find himself entombed in a cemetery in Mexico, like you do. He's forced to sell his gold watch to return to the United States. Upon his return, he finds that his mansion has been ransacked and vandalized by CRS. He retrieves a hidden gun and seeks the aid of his estranged wife. While talking with her and apologizing for his neglect and mistreatment of her, he discovers that Jim Feingold, the CRS employee who conducted his psychological test, is an actor who works in television advertisements. He locates Feingold and forces him to take Nicholas to CRS, where he takes Christine hostage. He demands to be taken to the leader of the organization. Nicholas takes Christine to the roof and bars the doors behind him. The CRS troops begin cutting through the door. Christine realizes that Nicholas' gun is not a prop, and she's terrified. She frantically tells Nicholas that the conspiracy is all a hoax, a fiction that was just part of the game. His finances are intact, his family and friends are waiting on the other side of the door, but he refuses to believe her. The door bursts open, and Nicholas shoots the first person to emerge, his brother Conrad, bearing an open bottle of champagne. Distraught, Nicholas throws himself off the roof, just as his late father did. He smashes through a glass roof and lands on a giant airbag. Emergency medical techs carefully remove him, and Nicholas finds that he's in a ballroom full of his friends, family, and every figure involved in the game. It all has been the game all along. Conrad is alive and well, and he explains that he initiated the game to get his brother to embrace life, not end up like his father, or be an asshole. Later, he approaches Christine as she's leaving and expresses an interest in getting to know the real her. The ending is a little troubling. How do you know he's going to jump off in that right exact place? You don't. Also, like Tony said, how do you know that he's going to find this guy, the picture of the guy? That seemed a little extra lucky. There was a couple things that make the end kind of get a little wobbly for me.
Yeah, I know this final act isn't perfect, but I totally love it. And either you're enjoying this movie and you want to like the ending, or you don't like the movie and you're rolling your eyes at this point. It's one or the other, right? Because it is ridiculous. I love this scene in Christine's apartment as we watch Nicholas discover little clues revealing that the apartment and Christine are not what they seem. And Nicholas finally believes he's in real danger after being shot at. The little tag he finds on the light, it's all so good. This is where we see, and I'm going to little rant here. This is the end. So this is where we see the final character arc of Nicholas Van Orton. He's been stripped of his money. He realizes he has no friends or family he can count on because he's pushed everyone away and has emotionally isolated himself. He's left for dead in Mexico in a Don Johnson suit with nothing. He's forced to look at his life and the choices he's made and how they've affected his relationships. Fincher, he has me believing now that Nicholas is desperate to the point of being a danger to himself and or others, which is what drives these final scenes as believable for me. And finally, the scene of Nicholas giving into his trauma after thinking he's killed Conrad. He jumps from the building on his 48th birthday, just like his father, a man stripped down to nothing, forced to face his fears. An extremely dark, heavy ending. Now, he lands in the middle of the giant party bag unharmed. His t-shirt, I got drugged and left for dead in Mexico. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? But this is comic relief. He's now a happy, well-adjusted man. I mean, come on. It's hard. It's hard to swallow this pill. He's just murdered his brother, committed suicide, and that's it.
Catharsis.
Catharsis.
is complete, and now he has been shocked into being a perfect man, happy and well adjusted. But I absolutely love it because I long for this catharsis, and the ending made me feel good. That's it. So I love it. I'm buying it. Give it to me. Mickey.
That's why movies is magic.
That's right. So, Mickey, was this ending magic for you, or was it a poopy diaper?
It was kind of in between. You know, again, I agree with Dylan. Like, how did they know? And I remember thinking the first time I saw this, the same thing. Like, how did they know he was going to go on that side? And you know, I know the guy said if you weren't going to jump, I was going to have to push you. It's like
Right.
that's a
Wait,
little
wait,
fucking
which
extreme.
didn't make sense because he was already shot and killed downstairs in the cafeteria. So if
Yeah.
he showed up to push him off, he'd be like, all right,
Right.
pigs up.
I mean, I just think you know, in a way, it's almost kind of like a Christmas Carol, like a Scrooge. You know, oh, you know what I
100%.
mean? Like, oh, you've seen this things that you've done, and now you've redeemed yourself, or whatever. Um, it, it, it was a little weak, but I feel like it. You know, this is the ride you're on, and just go with it because the whole thing is just so completely wackadoo. You know what I mean? You have no choice but to go with it. So I just, you know, again, the falling off, I understand why they did it, you know, him falling, walking off the roof on this same thing, but that was the only part for me that was like, oh, I don't know. And then he's going to go through the glass into a room with all these people, like, and they're all in on it and no one gave it. You know what I mean? Like, that was just,
Yeah. And here's the other problem, Mickey. He is forced to perform at least two stunts that a seasoned young stuntman would be like, they would be high level stunts. I mean,
right.
falling off a building, 300 feet into an airbag through breakaway glass. I mean, this 48-year-old guy is at the very least going to pull a fucking hammy. And
Right.
then fucking this cab, going 80 miles an hour into the bay. He's seatbelting up at the last minute. I mean, come on.
I know.
But
I
but
know.
I'm fine. But I'm fine. I
And
love it.
they, you know, and they even said, you know, oh, we had divers down there and blah blah blah. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of I'm kind of in between that give me a fucking break and that's really fucking cool. You know what I mean? I'm kind of like the person that loves movies and wants to believe in them. Ask
Yeah.
Tony. I'm always like, I'll say something about a movie and he'll like, they're just CGI. I'm like, can you just believe for 90 minutes? Can you
Right.
just believe? Do you know what I mean? Like watching Jurassic World and I get sad about the dinosaurs burning up and he's like, they're CGI dinosaurs, honey. They're not real. I'm like, just believe for the movie's sake. But that was a little, I don't know. So, but I do understand what you're saying. And I think, you know, again, I love the, you know, I was left for dead in Mexico t-shirt that, you know, the little comic relief that was pretty good. But, the whole thing with him and Christine at the end, I don't know. Like she was great, like on the roof with him. She was outstanding. Like she was amazing. But at the same time, when she's like, oh, you want to go for coffee? And he's like, yeah. And then like, okay, that's it. Like you after all that you just went through, and clearly there was a lot of time and effort put into that party, you're just gonna walk away. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
She kind of gives him the vibe like you're just another John. You're just another
Right.
customer. Like,
Yeah.
don't fall in love, buddy. It's not
Right.
happening. Um,
But she's also thinking like, this guy is fucking loaded. Do you know what I
Loaded.
mean? Like,
Right.
so
And
yeah.
gullible.
Yeah.
Loaded and gullible. You know what? I know you guys are probably all the same. When I love a movie, I will gladly suspend my disbelief and
Yes.
say, I don't care. I like this movie and I like this
Yeah.
ending, even though it could never happen in it. But if I don't like a movie, I will fucking, that could never happen. That is such
Yeah.
bullshit. So, yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Tony, the ending of the movie, did you love it or was it a poopy flavored popsicle?
Well, thankfully not the poopy popsicle for me. I think that I hadn't seen it in a while. And honestly, when he shoots Conrad, I had a brain fart and I really thought I was like, fuck, he's really dead.
Oh, shit.
And I think it was most of Deborah Kara Unger's, impassioned pleas for the don't shoot him because that's a real gun. That's a real
Yeah.
gun. And she even says it was supposed to be semi-automatic that you took from the guard. She knows the whole script, right? At this point, brother, you need to listen to her as totally on the ragged edge as you are, you've got to pay attention here because she's giving you the ghost, right? She's giving it up. So and of course, how do we say it correctly? CRS has always got both angles covered of everything, but it's the idea that I bought it hook, line, and sinker. As far as the very end where he goes out and speaks to her while she's getting into the cab, a little melancholy, a little
Yeah.
goofy, a little
Didn't
whatever.
need to be there.
The good part for me is that it doesn't end up with a nice bow where they, oh, honey, and they kiss and they're going to have a wonderful relationship. That would be really shitty. I think the
Yes.
difference too is like you said, Nick was very gullible. I think he's not so gullible anymore because
Yeah.
he says dinner and she says, well, maybe coffee at the airport. Kind of like, you're willing to go to a 3. I'm going to give you a 1.5
Yeah.
and we'll see where it goes from there. Because you know what? Nothing personal, but I play a role. You don't know shit about me because I'm a lot more faceted than you could even imagine.
And she gives him a second bullshit name too. What's your
Right.
real name? Oh, Jenny.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
Well, and you know the deal too, right? She has to look up and left. And I'm like, yeah, that's a classic I just told a fucking lie maneuver.
Okay.
Because when you have to think about what your name is, you got problems.
When you've been pulled over, don't look up and left. Don't look up
Well-
and left. They know that trick.
You know the difference too. How do we say this correctly? People will be like, "I don't have my driver's license, but I know my number, my driver's
Bullshit.
license number." I'm like, "No, you might know it. It's 16 digits where I used to work, and anybody that has that committed to memory probably is suspended and revoked because
Yeah,
they've been
I-
into more legal documents with their driver's license number on it than they can
good.
shake a stick at."
Good point. Yeah, you'd have to
Yeah.
know that number. You'd have to have
Yeah.
used it a lot.
Yeah, I
and-
literally have no idea what my license number is.
No idea.
Yeah,
No idea.
and that's usually a good sign because no one remembers that, right? Some people, like the ones that can't remember their social. I'm like, bro, you use this all the time for like stuff at many different places, and you don't remember something as simple as your social.
I know mine. It's tough. Oh shit.
But it is what it is. I think that the film does such a good job of that. I gave it the concept of the roller coaster that I'll go with it. You know what I mean? I'll go with the ups and downs. I'll ride it to the end, and I'll get out of the car and go, wow, that was pretty awesome. And you're right. There are a lot of things you could point out that are just not really believable. My thing too is that I think there are two different types of people in the world. I think there are the people who do what Nick did, and they have that epiphany moment where they're like, I'm so happy you're not dead. I'm so happy I'm not dead. I see the light. I'm gonna be a better person because I've had this catharsis, as Des says.
Yeah.
And they're okay, right? They don't go to La La Land. And then there's that segment of the world that doesn't kick in, and they fucking freak out because they're just so enraptured with all the shit that just happened to them, and they can't process it, and they're a fucking wreck, right? They're like, how did you do this to me? And what is wrong with you? And you fucking people are all crazy. And, they're just going to go off the fucking handle. And then about 2 or 3 days later, when they're able to process and get their shit back together, they'll go, wow, all that shit happened for a reason. And I'm a better person for it. Because now I've come to this point in my life where I can appreciate the things that I had no investment in previously. So I went with it. I'm good with it. And you know what? I enjoyed the film, so it doesn't matter for me.
I had this other thought on the Mexico scene. It was kind of like he was being reborn from that grave. And then
I like
he
your
leaves,
symbolism.
And he leaves
Not
his
only that,
father's-
but I got to interrupt you. It's not Don Johnson. It's David Byrne from the video where he's burning down the house.
Oh, yes, yes.
With the huge suit on. That's that suit. That is to me comedic because he looked so ridiculous walking around the way and going to the consulate and doing everything. And then the guy looks at him and he says, oh, that watch. And he says, that's worth a couple $100. And I'm like, I don't care if it's 97. That watch is worth like 20 grand.
Well,
What are
he
you
says a man with a watch like that doesn't have a passport problem. But
Yeah.
my observation was that's the watch he got from his father. So
Right.
he's leaving his father's ghost in Mexico. He's
Yeah.
finally taking the watch off and saying, I don't need to hold on to this anymore. So I thought these were some pretty neat things that Fincher put in at the very end to really just double down on this character arc.
Right.
It's a brilliant movie. It really is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's why he took it and ran with it, because it had been bounced around before with different directors and different studios. And when he read it, I think he said, I could really, kind of take this, put it under my arm and run with it and make it big, because it's got, great screenwriting and, the way they filmed it. San Francisco's a great town for this
Oh
movie.
yeah.
So, it all kind of came together. Even the scenes where he's driving through his gate, I love this, because he's in like a 8 Series BMW or whatever the hell it is. And he's blasting through this gate and he times it perfectly. It doesn't matter if he's coming home or going out. He's just driving like Mario Andretti doing like 70. And he's just, even when he calls the police, he goes, it's 2418 Broadway. You'll see it. It's the biggest house on the street. I'm like,
Yep.
you arrogant son of a bitch.
Well, also,
But-
you'll remember how Batman would come into Bruce Manor in the Batmobile 100 miles an hour. The door would just come up as he would get through the gate. They were playing some parallels there with that, I thought. It gave me the flavor. All right, so that's it. We have broken down the game for you guys. I hope that you enjoyed our conversation. Let's take it over to the recasting couch. Okay. I would replace Sean Penn with one Frank Stallone.
Of course you would.
There you go. Or we could replace Michael Douglas with Chris Christopherson. Okay. The win. What do you got?
I'm going to replace Michael Douglas with Harrison Ford.
Oh, yeah. And then this is Frantic. And the movie was
Yeah,
already
well-
made. So go check that out. That's Harrison Ford. Same exact movie, actually. Very, very similar. I like it. It works. Mickey, who are you going to replace?
I got two. I would replace Christine with Vera Farmiga.
Ooh, yes, please.
And I would replace Michael Douglas with Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy. I like that.
I think
Yes,
Cillian
please.
Murphy would do a really good job in that role.
I like him. I think he's a
Me
good
too.
actor. He's so
He is.
weird looking. He's so weird looking.
He's not. He's
We
cute.
call it unique, Des. It sounds nicer than weird looking.
It does. Weird sounds very derogatory. The
Nah.
fucking dick. Tony.
Whatever.
What do you-
I am gonna go and take your man Sean Penn out and use Joe Fiennes, because I think he plays more of a straight-laced kind of the Van Orton man.
Yes.
Because I think that the key there is though Sean Penn's a hoot. I think we didn't get enough of him, so I'm gonna
agree.
go with Joe Fiennes, because he's kind of vanilla and boring and he gets the job done.
I
And
like
my
it.
wife loves him as Commander Waterford, so it's all good.
Very good.
But I struggled with a replacement for Deborah Kara Unger. She is unique in both her features and the way she acts. I bounced around Scarlett Johansson, and I'm still not totally down with that. My wife's shaking her head. I'll tell you the truth. If I can go and really go off the fucking board, I'm going to resurrect Angie Dickinson from the 1970s, because she had cojones, if you know what I'm saying. And you need a character with balls, because this role is not for the sleight of heart. This is not The Notebook. This is a serious part, and you got to be believable. So I'm going to throw off. And those are my two.
Cool.
And I would have loved to see Jeff Bridges originally cast and see what he could do.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. You didn't go that far off the rails. Last week, I replaced Tim Curry as Frankfurter with Dennis Rodman from the Chicago Bulls. So there you go.
Nice. Nice. In his true alien states,
yes,
right? Where he had the
yes,
hair and the
yes.
piercings and all that.
Oh, so you see it. You see my
baby.
vision.
Oh, all day, every
Okay.
day. Come on,
Okay.
man. I
Perfect.
got you.
Yeah, those legs for days in fishnets. Dennis Rodman, forget about it. Okay.
Yeah, Dennis
uh,
dressed like that now, still,
Yeah.
when he's in Vegas. He doesn't give a shit.
I really think it would have worked.
As if we'd end the movie like that. Yeah.
Let's do the Scooby-Doo ending.
Good call.
Let's do our alternate endings. I have an amazing one like I do every week for you children, so sit back and listen to the tale I'm about to spin for you. So in my ending, we find out that Conrad was almost out of money and found out he was the sole benefactor if Nicholas were to pass away. So he sets the whole thing up to push his already unstable brother to suicide. But on the rooftop, Nicholas actually shoots and kills Conrad by mistake and then jumps from the wrong spot on the roof, splattering himself all over the buffet table at the party. With both brothers dead, the next in line to inherit the Van Orton fortune is longtime housekeeper and close friend to Nicholas's late father, Isla, who lives happily ever after as a witch woman. The end.
Elsa.
Ilsa.
Elsa. Ilsa. That's a pretty good
Isla.
ending, right?
He made her Latino.
It is a good ending. I like it.
She's Isla. She's from the Isle of Isla, yeah.
Sure, it's all right. I thought that was a very good ending.
I like
Delynn,
it.
What do you got?
I did not bring my A game tonight, but
Surprise. It's all right. My back
listen,
is strong.
I've been coming up with great ones. What do you see in surprise?
My back
Don't
is
be a
strong.
dick.
Go ahead. I can
Don't be a
hold you
dick.
up. Okay.
Don't be a dick.
I can't. I'm a dick. Go ahead.
Nicholas steps off the ledge, and instead of hitting the breakaway glass, his body hits the roof and he dies. Conrad and the rest of the partygoers are stunned by the sudden death of the man they've all come to celebrate, and everyone involved with CRS and Conrad all get arrested for murder, and everyone goes to jail. The end.
No, he signed a waiver. That doesn't work. Mickey,
Doesn't matter.
What do you got?
Don't believe the hype. A waiver is a fucking sheet of paper. I've signed lots of waivers and been sued by the best. That has nothing to do with bailing your ass out of court. Lawyers run the world. That's my commentary.
So you kind of both sort of stole my ending, but it was really just when he realized that he shot Conrad and thought that he killed him, that he jumped off and didn't hit the thing, and he actually just died. that was my
Oops.
ending. And it was weak, and I apologize, but I'm still kind of getting back into the groove. So
How creative.
thank you.
Tony, sorry, I just wanted to spread my dictum around a little bit. Tony, bring some fire here. What do you got for an ending?
I don't know about fire, but essentially here's the deal. I'm going to give Deborah Unger the ability to dance. I'm going to give Deborah Unger the ability to slow play in a poker kind of anomaly, or not anomaly, but allegory to the idea of Nicholas's relationship. And she lets him in a little bit, thinking that he's pulled back the curtain and he's a new man and he's trustworthy and he's good. And she basically just spider to the fly, brings him into the web, traps him, sucks his bank accounts dry, turns him out, and leaves him for dead while she goes and runs off to live the good life in, Bali or Bora Bora or wherever.
Second best ending of the night. I like it.
Thanks.
I like
Appreciate
it.
that,
It
buddy.
shows some thought. Very impressive. Okay, very nice. So that's it. We're done. I definitely had the best alternate ending, like every week. That's
Not every week. You're such a
That's
fucking-
what you come here for, folks. It's the humility, because this is a show where we're just easygoing and very humble.
yeah. I'm the talent, and I'm Batman. Tony is my Robin, and yeah, there you go. So
At least
let's
I
do
wasn't
some-
Catwoman.
Dylan, you guys can split
I want to see you
Catwoman.
in a cat suit, honey.
That
Dylan-
comes later, dear. You're going to have to pay extra if you want that.
We'll do Mickey as Catwoman and Dylan as Poison Ivy. Does that suit you, ladies?
Oh, there you go.
I'm Harley Quinn, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Oh, Harley Quinn, excuse me. Okay. The Lady Gaga Harley Quinn or
No,
All
my
right.
Harley Quinn.
Enough.
You
That was a
fool.
rhetorical question. I told you that this morning. Stop answering my stupid questions.
So here's the thing he does. He asks these stupid questions, and sometimes I answer him, and he's like, why do you even ask answer the stupid questions? You know it's a dumb question that I'm just asking to be dumb. So then he'll ask a dumb question, and I don't answer him, and he's like, did you hear me?
Then he gets offended.
What are you,
Yeah.
you just ignoring me?
I believe we call that a double-edged sword, where you're not right in either play.
All right. Let's do some quick rewatches. We will score this thing and we will put it to bed. I love this movie. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But it's a nostalgic movie for me. My one knock would definitely be the pacing. It's a little bit slow. I found it dragging for me a little bit tonight. So my rewatch score for the game is going to be 3.89. I thought it was pretty good. Tony, what was your score?
I am going to go with a 3.725. You kind of stole my
Nice.
concepts. I think it held up really well. 97 to me, because I'm an old fart. Doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
Nope, me
But
neither.
in watching the movie, you can definitely see a little bit of the datedness. But the plot itself and the screenwriting and the way it was shot is still spot on. It's a high budget, nicely done production. And I don't think that there's anything, as you said, if you like this movie, it captures your ability. You know what I mean? It doesn't bore you. It doesn't drag out. It's never, horrific in any one shape or form. It's just well-rounded, and it's enjoyable. And in your 2 hour, view time, you feel like you got, value for your entertainment kind of concept. So I
Yeah, I
dig it,
agree.
and I'd watch it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, so we both kind of saw it the same. It's a movie I'll leave on in the background anytime it's on.
Right
Mickey,
on.
what'd you think?
I kind of concur with both of you. I thought, I remember really enjoying it when I saw it years ago. I liked it again. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I did the first couple times I saw it, but it was fun. Now that the surprise has kind of gone from it, having seen it before, it was still really cool to watch and see how they kind of played him. But again, it was a little slow, and there were a couple of parts that I was just like, eh. So I'm going to give it a 3.25.
Nice. And Dylan, let's hear your much lower score for the game.
It is much lower. I definitely had issues with the pacing. It did not pass my phone test. I found myself rewinding because I had been looking at my phone for so long I had no idea what was going on. So that's on
That's
me.
not a good
but
sign.
I did rewind it, and I did, make myself put the phone down and pay attention. So I'm doing right by the podcast. But it definitely, I did have moments where it lost me. And also, like, the ending, I know it's a divisive ending because I looked online and some people love it and some people fucking hate it. So it's one of those divisive endings, and that in itself is actually good to me because that means it gives people something to talk about versus just walking out and being like, yeah, that was cool. So even though I find it that I didn't care for the ending, to me this is only a step above. And then he woke up and it was all a dream. It's like, oh Christ. And as far as David Fincher's films go, this is probably like in the middle for me. It's not like Seven or one of his better movies. So I gave it a 2.847.
Nice. All right. Will you please calculate those scores and tell us where the game lands on the Hey Did You Ever See That Movie list?
Okay, so with the calculations done, it comes out to a 3.428.
I like it.
Okay, and that puts it at number 55.
55.
Right about the middle.
What's above it and what's below it?
Right above it is U571, and right underneath it is Clue.
Oh God, Clue sucks, man.
That
That
Clue
movie
does
is such
not
a
suck.
piece of shit.
You're a piece of shit.
That movie is a piece of shit.
You're a
man.
piece of shit.
Fuck. Okay.
All right. Have fun at the domestic, kids. Love you.
Okay. Tony, have you ever seen Clue?
No.
Good. You don't need
Yeah.
to. Mickey, have you ever
No.
seen Clue?
I think I saw it a long time ago, but I don't remember it.
I think you're thinking of the 1970s version, and this is not the 1970s version that
Tim
I
Curry.
think. Yeah.
Tim Curry. Okay. So due to work and life, Pat is very busy. So we haven't really spoken to him about it, but it appears that I'm going to take a little pressure off of my buddy, and we are going to be leaving that slot vacant for a while. I'm not sure if he's going to come back to the show or not. So we're going to be doing 2 a month right now. So we won't be back next week. We will be back the following week with a Clockwork Orange, which we will be
Nice.
doing with original flavor, Tony. If the right person came along that was really committed to the podcast, really wanted to do it regularly, once a week, knew a lot about movies and was just totally down and jived with the whole thing, then, we'd probably open that slot back up and do that. But until that time, this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah, well, you better thank us too, because Des was like, I think me and you should just do one ourselves, and this would be a fucking bad idea. So we are saving you from Des and I just doing one with just me and him talking to y'all.
It
'cause
actually
would be
goes
bad.
It's actually worse than that because I was going to call it, hey, did you ever see that movie Classic, where we do things like Maltese Falcon and Casablanca.
And I was like, nope,
So we
I'm
could-
not down for that.
Yeah, you two could argue about movies that we know are already awesome, and then there's nothing really to argue about. So it's great.
Yeah, there it is. And on our sister podcast, Violent Vinyl Radio, we will be breaking down Alice Cooper's Poison. So there you go. If you think that I'm an extra dick, leave 2 eggplant emojis. And if not, just the 1 eggplant emoji. So we're going to see how many eggplant emojis we can get on YouTube.
Is this a fetish you have or something? What's up with the eggplant, man? Give us the backstory.
The over-under on this is 1 eggplant because I know our listeners, they do not get involved. So what's
Okay.
the over-under? Dylan, will we get 1 eggplant?
Oh, you're going to get at least one because I'm definitely going to put one there.
I was
That
going to
doesn't
say,
count.
if I know where to find an eggplant emoji, I'll give you one just for shits and giggles.
It's on your cell phone. Everybody,
right.
you can find the eggplant on your cell
Yeah, as
phone.
you can
I'll
tell,
try
I'm the technophobe in the house. So there you
Okay, so until next time, I just have one question for you. Hey, did you try those peanut butter Ritz crackers after 10 yet? See you next time.